Oh yeah, that's the conference where all the world leaders came on
Hmm.
their private jets, right? Yeah, that's interesting. You know, it's interesting to hear all these world leaders tell everybody that they should stay at home and have Zoom conferences, but they get to go and travel and meet
Hmm. Hmm.
everybody in person and have big banquets and big dinners and uh, rich food and convoys of cars and helicopters and thousands of security people and all of this to save the world, right? All of this for climate change, right?
Hmm.
Um, you know what a joke. You know they must think that we're stupid because
Hmm.
they don't help. I mean they do a lot of things. They're very busy, but they're not very busy with things that are really very important. Paying more tax is not going to save the planet. I mean it's a very simple principle. They
Hmm.
want to introduce more taxes that will
Hmm.
micromanage and control every element of people's lives. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not against micromanagement from a business context, but I am against micromanagement from a human context. That I
Hmm.
don't think we should all be treated like animals, and it's about control, really. It's about control.
Yeah.
Um, Land is about control, resources is about control, and um, all the power and authority that comes with it. Where you can do some good things, right? You can do some good things when you have some power. Um,
Hmm.
but it's also a trap. It's also a trap. Yeah. Um, I think I said before, it's very interesting because right now we're seeing the results of a plan which is 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, maybe
Hmm.
even older than that, which is very much about um, control of finances.
Hmm.
The, the Bible says, neither a borrower or a lender be. Yeah, it says,
Hmm.
don't lend money to people and don't borrow money from people. Yeah,
Negoštějte peníze.
yeah, yeah. It says, work with what you have. Work with what you
Mhm,
have. If you have, you have. If you don't, you don't.
mhm,
But
mhm,
don't work with what you don't have. Yeah.
mm,
And so right now we're in a situation where everybody has borrowed money, right? Everybody's borrowed money for their business or their house or their car
mhm,
or their holiday or they've just got something on credit that they're paying off or whatever. It's normal. You buy your house on a 15 to 30-year mortgage policy, which you pay back. And if you don't have a job, you can't pay it back and you lose everything. And that's the trap. It's the
mm,
that's the trap for everybody where you will do anything to work because you have bills to pay. The number of messages that I have seen over the last few weeks, which are, I really don't want to be involved in this, but I have to because I have bills to pay, right? Yeah,
mhm,
everybody's got their bills to pay. They've got their energy, they got their electricity and their gas and their water
mhm, mhm,
and to pay their bills, to live, they need a job of some kind. And
mhm,
to get a job, Now, a lot of people are having to do things that they would not normally have to do. Yeah,
Mm.
that they're being asked to get involved in medical practices, shall we say?
Mm.
And this is the plan. The plan was get everybody in debt so that they owe money, and then when everyone is in debt, that's it. We've got them all. We've got them all because if you don't pay your bills, you can't work, and if you can't work, then you don't get any of the good things in life, right? You don't get to buy nice clothes, you don't get to play sports, you don't get to visit events, you don't get to travel, right? You don't get access to all the things that are special, um, which were once upon a time normal. Um, so
Mm.
that's all of the control, and so we
Mm.
have the we have the governments who are the puppets, and we have the bankers who are pulling the strings um, to get everybody to sing from the same from to get everyone to sing the same song and get everybody on the same page so that they all do the same thing everywhere. Basically, is there's going to be one set of rules for everybody, and seeing I saw a picture today
Mhm.
of from this event that
Mhm.
you mentioned. I saw a picture today, and it was a big, beautiful room, and there was a big table, and all of
Mhm.
the world leaders were sitting around
Mhm.
this big table. It's very much a photo opportunity to um, make themselves look good or righteous or virtuous.
Mhm.
They travel in their car to the venue. They get out of the car. They put a mask on. They
Mhm.
walk to the door. They
Mhm.
take the mask
Där, ja.
off.
Ja.
Right? I mean, what
Ja.
how stupid can you get? Right? Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
it's not it's not in any way scientific. It's just
Yeah.
it's just nonsense in that respect. So uh, it's I don't know what they're all doing there. I mean, um, obviously they have to meet and they have to communicate and they have to talk and they have to share information, and this is a very public event, and I guess it should be public. But what are all the details? I don't know. It seems to me that there's not that much good that is going to come out of this for the average person. It will be more laws and more rules and more
Mm.
taxes or more limitations, because taxes are limitations. Um,
Mhm.
they're not going to say more freedom, and for me, it's a signal that the global pandemic is finished, right? Really, really finished.
Finished?
You would not have the leaders of all the major Western countries meeting together in the same place with all of their entourage and uh, assistants and helpers and yeah, like Joe Biden has a motorcade of like 20 cars and security and ambulances and God knows what else they have. Probably fake actors who look like Joe Biden or something like that. I mean, you can imagine that they have all of these things, and they have their food tasters as well. People who check their food, and there's you would not have all of these people together in one room if there really was a problem. They would be scared, right? They would be scared. They would be afraid. So it's a signal that these people are people who have not just one standard in their life. There's a series of standards, the different levels for different groups and different people. And one rule for them and another rule for other people. And it's okay. It's okay to have different rules for different people. I sort of have come to the conclusion that sometimes we need different rules for different people. But I don't think that I don't trust any of these people. But then I don't know them, and the world is a complicated place. So I think it's pretty safe to say that if you don't know somebody, you can't trust them. If you don't know someone, we are surrounded by people we don't know, and we lock our house door, our flat door, we lock our car, right? We lock the garden gate because we're surrounded by people we don't know, and we know that we can't trust everybody. So just like we lock the house, the home, the car, whatever, just like we need to protect ourselves as well, which is protecting our mind from this idea that if you know what the most expensive property in the world is? Do you know what the most expensive property in the world is? Property that is on the beach. That's the most expensive property in the world. Property that is on the beach, right?
On the beach, yes.
And you know what the beach is next to? Do you know what's next to the beach? Next to the beach is the sea. Right? Right. So if there really is climate change and the earth is heating and the ice is melting, then the water will rise, right? But who is buying all the property on the beach? Who is buying it? The people with the money, the rich people. The rich people are buying the property on the beach. Yeah, right. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that there would be a problem. There are a lot of things that are not logical. It's true. But even these things happen for a reason, right? Yeah. So every day you can go out in the world and you can see people and you can think, that looks strange or unusual or not logical, but these people have reasons for doing what it is that they're doing. Some of them might be super smart, some of them might be super crazy, but you don't know until you get all the information and what the story is. So it's very. You have to lead by example. Yeah? You have to lead by example. Everything else is hypocrisy. You have to lead by doing what you know is the right thing to do and expecting people only to do what you do. You can't be you can't say to people, don't travel because it's bad for the climate, and then travel. You just can't do it. I mean, it's so simple. Yeah.
Mm. Ah.
You can't say to people that the sea levels are rising and then buy a property on the beach, right? You just it doesn't
Mhm.
make any sense at all. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So it all feeds into the same story, which is that everybody has to move to the city and live in the city and
Mm.
be in that kind of biosphere or bioenvironment. Um, Look, I live next to the sea, right? And I've for
You've done,
20
Denise.
for 20 years of my
Mm.
life at the start, and now I have lived next to the sea. And you know what? The level's the same. The water level is exactly the same as it ever was. Um, every day the water goes up and goes down and goes up and goes down and goes up and goes down, and it's the same. The only thing that changes is that people build new structures. They build houses, and if you live near the sea, you find um, bridges and ports and
Mhm.
um, and so that's that's natural. And then if you go back in time in history, a lot of Britain was underwater. I mean, it's crazy, but it's a little bit of a contradiction. But if you
Mm.
go back in history,
Mm.
originally, way, 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 way back in history, we're talking like I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of years ago. I don't know exactly, but you could basically travel in a small boat from Britain to Europe because the water level was really low. There was land. Between Britain and Europe, there was land, and people
Mhm.
lived there, right?
Mhm.
But then over time, the water rose, and um, that land disappeared. Now, conversely, a lot of Britain was underwater. Um, a lot of the land was wet.
Mhm.
And about 300, 400 years ago, whoever was the king at the time decided that they wanted to make the wet land into dry land and to
Mhm.
build on the land because that
Mhm.
was good for
Mm.
the strength of their society and their community and their land, and they
Mhm.
could have more land, and land was power. And so did there have been these changes over time, but these changes really were changes made by people, not really by
Mhm.
the climate.
Mhm.
And if the solar system and the sun and everything else decides to do something unusual, if the moon changes or something happens in the solar system, there's nothing we can do about it, right?
Mhm.
There's absolute. If a big asteroid comes towards the Earth, firing a rocket at it is not really a solution.
Yes.
No, I mean, it might work, but it might not. It might make things worse. You might hit the big asteroid and get thousands of small asteroids
Mhm.
as a result. Um, and the idea that we could all be that organized to do that. I mean, we can't organize the little things, right?
No.
How are
No.
we really going to organize the bigger things? But maybe that's future project for humanity, and
Mm.
there's a big question mark over if
Mm.
there is some problem that comes from space. Is it even real? Because
Mhm.
we don't know because we're stuck
Don't
here
know.
on planet
Mm.
Earth where we don't know what's going on. So so we're very small in the bigger picture of things. It would be nice to think that all of the global leaders who are meeting are going to do something useful and positive for society, but it never happens. Well, show me something
Mhm.
amazing that has
Mhm.
come out of these climate agreements. It's all less of everything, and I support less pollution, but I don't think the average person is a bad person. I think the average person is relatively tidy and organized, in my experience.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's if you have 10 people, 8 out of that 10 are not going to cause a problem, right? So or they don't want to cause a problem, right? But there's always going to be somebody somewhere that makes a problem, and we have to deal with it. But the average person is relatively clean and tidy, and
Mhm.
I think that's normal. We don't need to think about it too much. We don't need to turn science into a religion. We don't need to turn climate change into a religion where people either believe it or they don't, and it's like it's summer is hotter, winter is colder,
Mhm.
um, and most of the news stories about things being hot and things being cold are
Mhm.
usually not completely true. Um, this is the hottest day ever
Mhm.
in 100 years, but you go back 200 years and it was hotter, right? I mean, it's the hottest ever since records started. Yes, yes, but don't forget about the medieval warm period. It's
No, no.
yeah, yeah. These, if we could really safely control everything,
Mm.
there would be no earthquakes, there would be no volcanoes, there would be
Mhm.
no
Mhm.
tsunamis,
Fire.
there would be no hurricanes, there would be
Okay.
no big fires,
Mhm.
right? If we could safely control everything.
Then. Mhm.
Well, it's either we can't control things, we just can't, it's just not possible, or we can, but then we don't want to, which is the other side where we had all these Greek islands 6 months ago. We had all these Greek islands on fire, yeah,
Mhm.
and all around the islands. I think I said at the time, all around the islands is water, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it should not be that complicated to put out the fire on the islands with some of the water which is around the island.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, whether you have pumps or you have planes that pick up the water and drop it or something. There's um, you know, we have to be smart about these things.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and then these global leaders they always give the same speeches like, oh, we all need to change the way we live. It's like, well,
Mhm.
what about you? What about
Mhm.
you first, right?
Mhm.
How about you stop flying around the planet? How about you stop having 5 homes? And I'm not against that. I'm not against people flying around the planet. I'm not against people having 5 homes, but it's not. It's hypocrisy if they have something and they tell other people not to have something. It's like, oh, you shouldn't eat meat, or you should eat less, or you're using too much of a certain kind of energy, or you should use
Mhm.
wind power. What?
Mhm.
Right? I mean, we are still a very, very, very long way away from
Mhm.
having any kind of sustainability in terms of resources. In fact, the use of resources itself is not sustainable because you're using something, right? Now, if you use something more than once, it's probably better than using it just once. I mean, that's a certain level of sustainability, but they have these phrases like carbon zero
Mhm.
by
Mhm.
2030.
Mhm.
What do you mean?
Mhm.
What do you mean carbon zero? We live in a CO2 environment, right? If there's no carbon, there's no CO2 environment. So, to reduce carbon to zero is to damage life, really. And you can't. You can't reduce carbon to zero. It's just not possible. It's like saying paying more money in taxes will reduce world hunger. Right? It doesn't work like that. You know, there are billionaires on the planet who have said we want to use our money to make sure there's food for everybody, and we try, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work just giving food to people.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's biblical. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he can feed the community, right? So
Mhm.
just giving people food is not the answer. It is far more complex than that. There needs to be infrastructure, development. There needs to be real form of education. There needs to be, um, I would say, an open and free market economy for business where people can buy what they want to buy and sell what they want to sell and make what they want to make. And if they can find a market for themselves, then good. And that's originally how things were. But um, that's what I think about um, global leaders who have little or no contact with the public, um,
Amen.
who constantly tell the public what it is that the public should do, and then where where are we then, right? Where are we then? It doesn't seem to be very representative of what people want, and um,